In the 1980s, America's interstate highway system represented both opportunity and vulnerability. More than 3 million long-haul truck drivers crisscrossed the nation, moving goods across state lines in a transportation network that connected the country from coast to coast. For law enforcement, this mobility created a blind spot. Before the advent of computerized databases and interstate information sharing, a crime committed in one jurisdiction might never be connected to a similar crime hundreds of miles away in another state. This fragmentation allowed certain offenders to operate with disturbing freedom, treating America's highways as hunting grounds where victims could be picked up, brutalized, and discarded across multiple states with little risk of detection. Among these mobile predators, few proved as calculating or as brutal as Ben Rhoades, a long-haul trucker who transformed the sleeper compartment of his semi into what investigators would later describe as a traveling torture chamber. His April 1990 arrest in Arizona would expose not just the scope of his crimes, but the profound challenges law enforcement faced in tracking offenders whose workplace was the open road. Ben Rhoades was born on November 22, 1945, in Council Bluffs, Iowa. From an early age, his life was marked by instability and violence. In 1964, when Rhoades was 18, his father was arrested for molesting a 12-year-old girl and committed suicide before the trial. This family trauma occurred just as Rhoades was completing high school, where he had already accumulated arrests for vehicle tampering and fighting. After graduating, he joined the United States Marine Corps, but his military career was short-lived. He was dishonorably discharged following a robbery conviction. Rhoades briefly attended college but dropped out, then worked a series of jobs at supermarkets, restaurants, and warehouses before finding work that would suit his predatory nature perfectly: long-haul trucking. By the early 1970s, Rhoades was driving 18-wheelers across the country, spending weeks at a time on the road, largely unsupervised and free to stop wherever he chose. What investigators would later piece together suggests that Rhoades may have begun killing as early as 1975, using his profession as both camouflage and opportunity. Rhoades targeted women he perceived as vulnerable and unlikely to be immediately missed. Hitchhikers, runaways, sex workers, and young women stranded at truck stops became his prey. He would approach them with a friendly demeanor, offering rides or assistance, then once they were inside his truck, he would overpower them. His truck's sleeper compartment had been specially modified with restraints, hooks, and storage for instruments of torture. Rhoades would keep victims captive for days or even weeks, subjecting them to prolonged sexual assault and physical torture before killing them. He documented his crimes with Polaroid photographs, capturing images of his victims at various stages of captivity, showing progressive bruising and deterioration. Investigators believe he found pleasure not just in the violence itself, but in the extended control and terror he could inflict. After murdering his victims, Rhoades would dispose of their bodies along remote stretches of highway, often hundreds of miles from where he had abducted them, making it extraordinarily difficult for any single law enforcement agency to recognize a pattern. The first confirmed murders occurred in January 1990, though authorities believe Rhoades had been killing for more than a decade before that. 24-year-old Patricia Walsh and her 28-year-old husband Douglas Zyskowski, both from Seattle, Washington, were hitchhiking through Texas when Rhoades picked them up. He shot and killed Douglas almost immediately, leaving his body in Sutton County, Texas, where it was discovered later that month. Rhoades kept Patricia captive for approximately 7 days, torturing and repeatedly raping her before killing her and dumping her body in Millard County, Utah. Her remains were found in October 1990, but it would take until May 2003 for forensic scientists to identify her through dental records. Douglas was identified in 1992, also through dental records. About a month after killing the Zyskowskis in February 1990, Rhoades picked up another couple near Houston, Texas. 14-year-old Regina K. Walters and her boyfriend, 17-year-old Ricky Lee Jones, were runaways hoping to start a new life. Rhoades shot Jones immediately. His body was found in Mississippi in 1991, but was unidentified until 2008. Regina suffered a fate even worse. Rhoades held her captive for at least 2 weeks, possibly longer. He shaved her head and pubic hair, pierced her body with fishing hooks, dressed her in a black dress and heels, and photographed her repeatedly. The photographs later found in his possession showed her with varying hair lengths and worsening bruises, documenting the duration of her captivity. In one of the final photographs taken in an abandoned barn in Illinois, Regina is shown with a haunting expression of terror and pleading. Shortly after that photograph was taken, Rhoades strangled her with a baling wire garrote and left her body in the barn off Interstate 70, where it was discovered in September 1990. The arrest that ended Rhoades' killing spree came not from sophisticated detective work but from routine highway patrol procedures. In the early morning hours of April 1, 1990, Arizona Highway Patrol Trooper Mike Miller was driving along Interstate 10 near Casa Grande, Arizona, when he noticed a semi-tractor trailer parked on the shoulder with its hazard lights flashing. Following standard protocol to check on stranded motorists, Miller pulled over and approached the truck. What he found when he shined his flashlight into the cab was a scene of horror. In the sleeper compartment was a nude woman, handcuffed and screaming. She was wearing only bathroom slippers and had a horse bridle secured around her neck. Rhoades, who identified himself as the driver, attempted to talk his way out of the situation, claiming it was a private matter between consenting adults. Miller was not convinced. He placed Rhoades under arrest and discovered a .25 caliber pistol on his person. Rhoades was charged with aggravated assault, sexual assault, and unlawful imprisonment. While handcuffed in Miller's patrol car, Rhoades nearly managed to escape, but was subdued. The victim, a 27-year-old woman, told Casa Grande police detective Rick Barnhart that she had accepted a ride from Rhoades at a truck stop near Phoenix. She fell asleep in the cab, and when she woke, she was handcuffed and being undressed. She fought back, managing to bite Rhoades, but he overpowered her and spent the remainder of the day traveling with her restrained in the back, periodically stopping to torture her with implements he kept in a briefcase. When investigators searched Rhoades' truck, they found that briefcase containing alligator clips, leashes, handcuffs, whips, and other instruments. Barnhart began to suspect there was more to this case than a single assault. He connected it to an earlier incident in Houston just months prior, where an 18-year-old woman had been held captive in Rhoades' truck for 2 weeks. That victim had been too frightened to press charges, and Rhoades had been released. When police executed search warrants on Rhoades' Houston apartment and his truck, they discovered Polaroid photographs of multiple women in various states of distress, bondage, and injury. One photograph matched Regina K. Walters, whose body had not yet been found, but who had been reported missing. Investigators from multiple states began comparing notes, and a horrifying pattern emerged. Rhoades' trucking logs placed him in proximity to dozens of unsolved murders and disappearances along major interstate corridors. The FBI would eventually estimate that he could be responsible for as many as 50 murders, though he was ultimately convicted of only 3. Rhoades was tried and convicted in Illinois for the 1990 murder of Regina Walters. In 1994, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In 2012, more than 20 years after the crimes, DNA evidence definitively linked Rhoades to the murders of Patricia Walsh and Douglas Zyskowski. He pleaded guilty to both murders in Texas and received 2 additional life sentences as part of a plea agreement to avoid the death penalty. The judge in that case noted that if Rhoades were somehow released from his Illinois sentence, the Texas convictions would ensure he remained incarcerated for the rest of his life. Today, at 79 years old, Robert Ben Rhoades remains imprisoned in an Illinois Department of Corrections facility. The Rhoades case had profound implications for how law enforcement understood and tracked serial violence. It contributed to the creation of the FBI's Highway Serial Killings Initiative, launched in 2009, which maintains a database of victims found along or near highways and interstates, attempting to identify patterns that might indicate serial predators. The case also highlighted the particular vulnerability of hitchhikers, runaways, and sex workers, individuals often dismissed or overlooked by society and law enforcement, making them ideal targets for predators. Perhaps most importantly, the Rhoades case demonstrated that routine traffic stops and attentive patrol officers can be the difference between a killer continuing to operate and a killer being brought to justice. Had Trooper Mike Miller not stopped that April morning to check on what appeared to be a stranded trucker, Robert Ben Rhoades might have continued killing for years, his victims scattered across a nation too fragmented to connect the dots.